Welcome to DYNICS OT Cybersecurity from the Plant Floor Up podcast. This is Chris Gibbs. Our guest today is Tim Mullen, Cybersecurity Manager with Applied Control Engineering.
Hey, Chris. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about Applied Control. Can I call it ACE? Do you guys call it ACE?
Yeah. We usually go by ACE.
Yeah, I'll just call it ACE from now on. Make it easier for this discussion. Tell us about your role there, and what you guys have just stood up.
Sure. So ACE, Applied Control Engineering, we're a control systems integrator and engineering firm based out of Newark, Delaware, but have 9 offices across the U.S., been around since 91. We work in all industries, all verticals, vendor agnostic. And what I do here is, as the Cybersecurity Manager here at ACE, I lead our Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Solutions group. So my distributed team of OT engineers supports our over 200 execution staff on the controls engineering front in a variety of ways, right? So internal secure by design, system stand up in our offices, when people are working on site, identifying gaps and coming up with remediation plans.
So that's interesting. So when did you guys officially formulate the group?
So we created the group last November, but cybersecurity is really something we've been doing throughout our history. I mean, we're doers here at ACE. So, the people who configure the network switches, who install and configure the operating systems and set up the permissions and the application software, right? Like, those are the things that are at the heart of security in an engineered computing system. And those are what we've always been doing. But we decided to stand up the CISG for a couple of reasons. One was to take those siloed efforts where, people in one office were coming up with one solution and then someone else was seeing something different elsewhere. We wanted to bring those into one central group where we can be kind of defining what the best practices are, helping disseminate them out to the engineers. And the other advantage of it is we can really focus directly on that problem of how do we create secure systems, these new technologies, new ideas on the way that we should be developing it are coming out. We're able to dig into those concepts, those topics, and digest that and make it actually practicable for engineers who are trying to make something that puts out product on the plant floor, that runs a process and has something coming out the other end.
Yeah. So you guys were already doing this function before you set up the group. Did you find that your customer base pulled you into it, or was it you and your marketing and sales team saying, "Hey, customers, this is what you need to do"? How did it get started? You doing the cybersecurity and networking?
Yeah, a little bit of both, right? So on the one hand, it is having a clear way to market it, right? Make sure our customers know that this is something that they can turn to us for help on, and they don't have to be going and looking out for a different consultancy to add this one additional thing into their systems. So that's one piece of it. And the other, on the customer-driven piece, most of all, was us identifying that our customers need us to be proactive on bringing these practices and solutions into their system. They need a trusted advisor who are able to cut through some of the very pure technology oriented pushes that they're kind of trying to evaluate and contend with, and to instead have someone focused on the whole system picture and identify for them what it looks like to have this all integrated, what is going to meet their needs on the security side. So, and that's mirrored in things that, IT departments have been doing over the past couple of years, and many of our customers standing up these dedicated OT security groups. But it's a need that exists, in organizations of all sizes and sophistication. They need that same level of guidance and someone to turn to.
That's interesting. You bring up the IT because that's where I was going to go with you. When you're dealing with your customer base, is it the OT guys coming to you and saying, "Hey, we need to control and provide cybersecurity to the to our network, or is it the IT guys coming to you saying, we need the data, or we need to do this, but we don't want to stop production? How have the requests been coming to you, and who is your contact on the other side? Is it both? Is it everyone, or is it a particular persona?
Well, so my background is as a boots on the ground, hands-on control systems engineer. That's how I started my career, and that's kind of the side of the house that I know best. And to give you the easy, well, it's both answer. That's true because they're both coming and asking for things that are involved in cybersecurity, but they're just asking in different ways. So, these folks from the engineering operations side of the house, they're asking questions like, how do we make sure if something happens, we're able to recover quickly, right? Well, the answer to that is things like disaster recovery plans, backup systems, those types of technology solutions are the things that they need to help them achieve the resilience goals they want. And then, of course, from the IT side of the house is where we receive more of the direct head-on questions of, compliance with a standard, or what are we doing on hardening, or some areas like that.
Yeah. Do they have an idea of their end state, of their end goal? Or do most people come to you and say, what next? Help us with that first step. Help us figure out where we could possibly get to.
Well, I don't know what you see the most of, but I think having a clear final picture is one of the hardest things for people to grapple with. And, for a long time, I would have answered that question off the bat of, well, the first thing you do is you set out a roadmap of where you want to go and how you're going to get there to your target state. You got to have that target state first. And I still think that's true, and that you need to have an idea of where you want to go first. But over time, I guess my feelings on that have changed a little bit, in that, uncertainty on what the target state you want to reach is okay. The more important thing is to start taking steps, right? And wanting to make those iterative improvements, because this always is an iterative process, right? And that's baked into every framework, right? That you need to be reassessing yourself constantly. So I think that the enthusiasm for making something happen is the thing that I'm more happy to see than someone with a crystal clear picture of what they need done and just a laundry list to go do it.
Right. Right. Or the desire to figure out the end state causing delay in the first step. And so that kind of gets to your point of the urgency of just starting something now will get you farther than figuring out where you're going to go. What is your first step? What do you guys usually do when you go in to meet with somebody? What do you say? All right, this is what we got to do next.
Yeah, so the first thing, if we're thinking of a new customer situation, right, it's understanding, what it is that their process does. What does this technology here support? If I'm thinking about, I want to take a cyber-informed approach to achieving an end goal. The end goal is the critical functions of your operation outfit. What are we trying to manufacture? What are we trying to produce? So having that kind of clear understanding of here's what we're doing, here's what the technology systems are doing to support that end goal. That piece is always our starting point.
Right. Because you guys got the 30 odd years of doing the process control engineering to begin with, much less adding the cyber on top of it, right?
That's right, over 35. And that's one of our strong suits, is that fact that, we are able to go in there and make the changes onto the system and not just talk about it. We're able to use the engineering tools required to implement the solution that you want to get to, instead of, having it be a line item on a Gantt chart for you to take to somebody else.
Right. You got to start somewhere. Thinking big picture, like what do you see in the market? Like what do you see A, with the customers you're talking to, and then B, like you and I were both at the Control System Integrator Association conference a couple weeks ago. We're both going to Automate here in a couple weeks. What do you see? What do you hear when you're out there in the market? What are people coming to you and saying, this is where we're at. This is where we want to go, or we can't get nothing done. What are you thinking about?
Yeah, well, something we've been getting a lot more questions on is cyber informed engineering. So, this is actually something I'm going to be speaking about at Automate in a couple weeks here. But this is a concept and a framework put together by INL, Idaho National Labs, a couple years ago. And it's really trying to adapt a software design concept of, secure by design. Here's how we're changing the software so that it's not presenting vulnerabilities in the first place. And the kernel thought, right, is how do we expand this to the entire engineering process, involve the other disciplines, and in doing so, make sure that this is something that's being addressed right from the get-go, as OT systems are being designed and specified and put together, and not something that is being managed at the end. Once you have technology systems, you already got it there, and are left wondering, okay, well, I guess I'll do something with this to get it closer to security. So we've been receiving questions on that, and it's a tough, translating that concept and the principles into actions it's actually a pretty tough one to chew on.
Interesting. What makes it tough? Taking too big a bite. Is it the elephant issue? Like you take one bite at a time, or are people trying to take too big a bite of the elephant?
Well, I think it's not understanding where to start. So, no one's got their fork and knife and is ready to sit down at the dinner table. And we got to start there before you're deciding how big a bite you're going to take. But turning our metaphors here into what do we actually do? That is one of the great challenges that people are facing, and to make it concrete, if I'm looking at the principles, right, of engineered controls and design simplification, well, many of the tools that I have to implement improved, design focused security is, well, let's get rid of digital logic. That is a tool and an outcome that people may be driven towards in this process. And from kind of the naive perspective, not naive. If I think of a simple system, right, I've got a pump that's got to move water, instead of having a networked VFD drive for something that's going to run at the same speed. Let's replace that with hardwired logic. That's the type of thing that in the simple case, there can be some sense to that. But when I think of how do I remove digital logic in my system in something that has to be automated, right? So in cases like that, it becomes a lot more complex, and actually achieving both an automated digital-based system, which is required to achieve the goals, and actually, process honoring the concepts of cyber-informed engineering, it's hard. And one of the things that we have to thread together here in the CISG, right, is, okay, let me take my network. Clearly, whenever I need a network that's going to be based on digital technologies, right, how do I reduce my attack surface there from the get-go? Well, one thing is, instead of using, traditional Ethernet, TCP, UDP networking concepts, as far as, well, here are the automated algorithms we're going to have to route packets, to do routing, to do resiliency. If I think of spanning tree, right? Here are these complicated state machines and chunks of logic we've set up that'll let me just kind of glue stuff together and let it run and work without having to do much design work. So that's kind of that would be the traditional networking approach. So instead of having these complex and undesigned technologies carrying our critical traffic in the network, what if we looked at something like software-defined networking instead, right? So still got software in the name, so we're still automating. Yep, it's still there. But, right, how am I achieving my design simplification and my reduction of pathways? Well, instead of having those algorithms that I mentioned running to determine the routing of packets, I'm replacing that with my much smaller, directly defined rule sets. I need this to go from here to here. Much smaller number of rules to be evaluated, much more deterministic, because it's specifically serving that purpose of me deciding where these things should go, instead of me trying to tweak this black box for it to act in the way I want. More deterministic, reduced, complexity, number of edge cases, and still achieving the automation part of having digital devices talk to each other.
Yeah, that's kind of, I love the way you just teed that up and went through the process, which gets back to exactly why we call this podcast what we call this podcast, OT Cyber from the plant floor up. So we've created, and thanks for the plug on the technology, because it's very important, reduce the attack surface by only allowing that traffic which needs to be there for operation of the plant. And getting back to your earlier points, like you can't take the digital off the network. What are you going to do? Go back to a manual process? Do we have the bodies today to do such a thing? Right. Maybe we will. I don't think so. I think we got to live in the real world that we're in. So that's
yeah. Good. Maybe in the utility plant to move chilled water around, you can. But if I think of something like a packaging line, end of line packaging, where it's dealing with hundreds of bottles and palletizing and all that sort of thing, we've long since got past the point where we could just have a person doing that instead.
Yep. Yeah, completely. And in many places, there's no person anywhere to be doing anything anyway. So we got to be in control of it. All right. Well, this is great. Thank you for coming to talk to us. If someone's listening to this for the first time, hasn't met you guys before, maybe brings you in, what's the thing you want them to remember? Hey, when you come to us or when you start your journey, do this first. Is it an assessment? Is it tabletop? What do people need to think about doing first just to start that process?
If I'm thinking of something, go do this on your own, and you're taking the first step, have a list of your devices. Have a way to identify your technologies, and that gives you, whoever you're talking to after that, right? You're having a discussion with us, with the automation engineering team, having that list of, hey, here are these things. What do they do? That's a key start.
That's actually the first question we hear. And, we're a vendor. We sell network and cyber gear. We're in every OT vertical. When we go and talk to an end user, talk to a system integrator, talk to, any of our reseller or distributor partners, the first thing we hear is, can you tell me what's on my network? Can you tell me what's talking to what? Can you tell me how they're talking? And can I do anything about it? And of course, we answer all of those. Yes. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Start there. What is on the network? What are you protecting and controlling? That's good. That is good advice.
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
So Chris, something that we often hear as a concern is, well, I don't know what I have right now. How am I going to gain any visibility without replacing everything in my existing plan? Is that something that you guys are hearing often?
We do, and that's absolutely a legitimate concern because you can't replace everything today, and you can't do it. So you do it in steps. You take a cell, a zone at a time. You get some visibility. You make some assumptions for what to do next. But it almost goes back to that first point of you can't have the end state completely defined before you start walking. You've got to start moving. And so we help people gather the data as they go, but yet in a cost-effective and efficient way.
It's definitely helpful is having those technology partners who can help customers take that first step.
And then the good thing is, here's another point I was going to make. We were at that CSIA conference. One thing they brought up there as they're talking to other system integrators, control system integrators, is let's call it the business models have changed, right? The revenue models have changed from project driven to recurring managed service revenue. Is that part of your delivery there with the CISG group?
It is. Been talking about the cybersecurity piece a lot, but when I move on to the infrastructure piece of that name, that is where we are also working on addressing that change to the model in the business. And it's something, again, I mentioned I come from a controls background. I like that finality of the start, finish, end of the project. And people are comfortable with working that way, but there's some downsides to it, right? And when you do support work, it becomes really clear that what really helps keep systems running smoothly, what prevents, changes, technical debt from stacking up and only being addressable as a massive effort instead of iteratively over time. The things that cause those issues are when you don't have alignment of the business model of providing service to continuing maintenance of computing systems, right? Which is really what the managed service model is about. These are things that need care and feeding to be able to, meet their design goals over time for them to continue operating in a secure fashion. And when that adjustment of the business model is allowing us and the customer to kind of realize, these things do work better when we are keeping an eye on them, when we're both driven to find the root cause of issues and prevent them from happening again. You don't want to have another outage on your line. I don't want to have another call in the middle of the night. Let's both make it so that can happen.
Exactly. So I like that term, and I was thinking it while you were explaining continuous care and feeding. It's exactly what it is. It doesn't have to be every moment. It has to be, periodic to make sure everything's in tune. All right. Well, I think that is a pretty good conversation for today. Anything else? Any other points you would like to make, or have anything people to know?
No. And looking forward to seeing you at Automate.
Sounds good. We will see you at Automate and look forward to seeing your cyber-informed design presentation.